Why do we doubt ourselves? Why do we question our own ability to initiate change? You see, through all of the things we hear in life, we think that, we can't do it. When we think of the word power, we readily think of a successful CEO in his mid-50s with an Italian suit and a comb-over, or maybe you're thinking of authority, so you're thinking of the President of the United States. Both of these people undoubtedly have power. But what we don't think of is what power truly can be. You see, Merriam-Webster defines the word power as the possession of control, authority, or influence over others. Now, through the connotation of the words that we've been given, we think that, we don't have a power. That's for somebody else. Well, I'm here to tell you that power is not limited to a select few. We all have a power inside of ourselves. And when we find a way to unleash that power, we make a splash in the world whose ripples do not soon fade away. Over the past few years, I've been given a chance to see the power that comes from the spirit of passionate people. Last October, a year ago, I was given the opportunity to be a part of the United Way's event, the Day of Caring, which they use to, they bring community members of all ages out into the community, and they work on, making a change. And they help their senior citizens, they help local nonprofits, and they clean up around their areas and their facilities. I personally went on a bus of about 25 students and teachers, and we went up to Riding on Angel's Wings, a ranch for therapeutic horseback riding near Felton, Minnesota. On the way up there, it became very apparent to me that I really didn't know anyone on that bus because everyone spent that entire time staring into their phones, pretending like they were texting the most important human being on the planet, when in reality, we all knew that they were just trying to beat their high score on Angry Birds. So, but nevertheless, we kept on trucking. We got up there safely, and we pulled into this little farmyard that looked like your average place with somebody who liked to ride horses. There was nothing about it that gave away an obvious clue as to how many lives had been changed there. So, as we filed off the bus, a woman came out of the house to come and greet us and thank us for coming out to help her. She led us back to the trees behind her house where we were going to help her clean up the trees that had been ravaged by windstorms. Within a few minutes, everyone was well into cleanup mode, so much so that a group of 10 guys were actually carrying whole dead trees out of the woods. And yes, I can proudly say that I was a part of that group. So in just a couple hours' time, we had swept through the entire area and made what could potentially have been the greatest bonfire known to mankind. And we were ready to get back on the bus. But before we left, the owner gave us a tour of the facilities. She told us the story of how it all began. Her son was born with congenital heart defects and cerebral palsy. Having always been interested in horses, she deeply wanted to share that passion with her son. So, after much hard work and dedication, she helped her son learn how to ride a horse. Now, not only was this a great moment for her, but it was therapeutic for her son. Seeing that light in his eyes made her want to spread that same joy to other children in his situation. So, after years of hard work, she's helped nearly 40 children who not have had that opportunity in any other way. She changed their lives by what she chose to do for them. Her power came from passion, not position. As you can tell, this is something that affected me. And on the way back to the school on the bus, there was an obvious change in the mood on the bus. Everyone was in a different, just smiling and chatting to each other and about who was able to lift the biggest branch, and they were comfortable with each other. But it was more than just high school students comparing how strong they were. It was a realization that they had just done something in a couple hours that might have taken one person a couple weeks. You see, through their dedication, they went out and they changed someone's day. They affected the way that they ran their business. And they had been inspired. I was inspired. And as you can tell, this was an experience that stuck with me. So this past December, I got the chance to run for State Student Council President. Now, first of all, let me give you a little background on our State Student Council. It's tremendous. Seriously, I love everything about it. Last year, we had 1,400 kids come out, and we all had a great time together, and we left with a completely new outlook on life. But, the only downside to having record attendance every year is that sometimes you end up having, it's a hard time to organize a project among such a large group of busy individuals. Regardless, people still try to come up with an idea of what they'll do once they're elected, a campaign promise, if you will. And like most campaign promises we hear, they typically don't turn out. If you don't believe me, look at tax cuts. Now we're on the same page. But so my platform was that I wanted to have a statewide student day of caring. You know, this was something that affected me, and I wanted to share that with as many children as I possibly could. So after doing all of my campaigning and my politicking, I learned that I needed to have kissed more hands and shaken more babies, or maybe that was the reason why I lost. I'm not sure. But you know, I went out and you know I got the role of vice president, but you see, that wasn't good enough for me. I only got second place, but I felt like I had lost. I wasn't very gracious. So I went back home with the idea that, you know, I can move on with my life. I don't need to fulfill my promise. I was under the impression that power comes from position. So after a few weeks after I got back from state, I got a call from a friend of mine who has been a lifelong proponent of youth becoming more involved. He said he wanted to chat with me about my position. I had a pretty good idea what this meant. So we met for lunch one day in one of those overpriced yet paper plate type of cafe to catch up. He let me know immediately that I was not going to get off the hook that easily. He told me that there was somebody there to tell me that responsibilities don't just wash away. So by the end of that school year, he hooked me up with my first meeting with the United Way. He wasn't my advisor or the president of a charity, but he inspired me. His power came from passion, not position. So by the end of that school year, I had my first meeting with the United Way, and as you can imagine, I was a little anxious for this. I was a 17-year-old who was meeting with 4 directors of the United Way, so it was kind of like a job interview on steroids. You know, but I went there and I pitched my idea to them, and they were just overwhelmingly enthusiastic to help me out. I couldn't have went any better. And the way that they received that project just really improved my entire outlook for the whole idea. You know, they had always been experienced in organizing their local event, but they had just agreed to manage the entire state with me. They were, you know, I wouldn't say it was quite as bad as the blind leading the blind, but I'm fairly certain there was a seeing eye dog involved in there somewhere. So that day kick-started a summer full of meetings and emails back and forth, trying to coordinate something that neither of us had done before. You know, you can imagine that one United Way chapter trying to, you know, hold the hands of all the other ones and guide them through the project was something that was going to be difficult for them. But, you know, they went along with it, and at the end of that summer, a few days before I went back to school, we got the chance to pitch the idea to all the United Ways of North Dakota. They happened to be meeting in Fargo. So we went out and you know, that might be a room full of the most community-minded people in North Dakota, but it was still a little bit of a scary experience. So my state advisor came with me, and he was extremely dedicated to, you know, helping students succeed. So we pitched the idea to them, and with a huge sigh of relief, a majority of them wanted on board. And now that we had, you know, pitched the idea to the schools, pitch the idea to the United Ways, we could help out the schools. We could approach the schools and see how they wanted to get involved. So we sent them this fancy little letter that said, hey, you know, we want you to be a part of this. I didn't have a whole lot of huge expectations for this because it was something that I was completely new to the state, and that I didn't expect anyone to really jump on board. I kept my expectations at a reasonable level and thought, you know, if we get 10 to 15 high schools to participate in its first year, you know, send out a couple hundred kids across the communities, that'd be wonderful for me. I would feel like we had accomplished something. So we went on with that, and that was when I really learned that there are a few things in life that just are set to happen that way. Through the efforts of the United Way, they reached out to the governor's office and found out that the First Lady was currently pushing a platform based on the importance of youth volunteerism. Sounds a little familiar to me. So we went out, and the governor arranged to proclaim that the Day of Caring, October 11th, which we had scheduled, was to be proclaimed the official statewide Student Day of Caring. This was the moment that my project felt legitimized. Because of, you know, one person's actions and the way that they took what we were doing, I felt like it was actually going to happen. Nothing that I could do then was going to stop what was already in motion. So on October 11th, we headed out to the state capitol to have a meeting with, or to have the press conference with the First Lady. Now, I always feel obligated to say First Lady of North Dakota, because one time I just said First Lady and someone thought I meant Michelle Obama, and they were a little disappointed when I found out I didn't meet her. But we had our press conference, First Lady of North Dakota, United Way, and my state advisor, and it was a blast. We had a great time. And that day I realized why we were at the state capitol for this. We had garnered 2,000 students from 51 different high schools across the state. Through these students, they had nothing driving them, no incentive except for the feeling of service. Their hours of service were worth $87,000 in labor to the state and their towns. Just because of the way that these people were inspired to go out and help their communities, they made a huge impact. That splash in the world had ripples that won't soon fade away. Their power came from passion and not position. Now, perhaps what amazed me most about the project, in Minot, students went out and they cleaned up leaves at their area zoo, and in West Fargo, students helped senior citizens get ready for fall with their fall cleanings. They washed windows for them, and they did a whole bunch of stuff for them. And now, what amazed me most about this project was, yeah, we had a lot of students on board. That was awesome. But it was the reach of an idea. Because of one high school student's idea and the network of people that cared about helping their community, we were able to make an enormous impact. And that was the moment that I realized that this didn't happen because I was in a position that let me do this, but because I held a passion to help students, to help out the communities. It came from passion, not position. Now, we need to recognize the importance of an idea. We often doubt what one person's ideas can do, but Fill the Dome, a nationally recognized food drive, was an idea. The backpack program, which provides food for hungry children, was an idea. Now, we don't need to be intimidated by the old adage that tells us that one person cannot change the world, because one person's ideas do create change. And from that, and from a network of people that are willing to help out, we can change the world. Now, you don't need to be the president of a charity or the head of some volunteer network, or even in any position that allows you to control another's actions. But you can control your actions. And because of that, you can turn your passion into power. Thank you.